Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Two ways you can join the show. We are streaming via YouTube Live. You can subscribe there, enter in questions or comments into that box, and we'll make sure to ask our guests at the end. Also, you guys can always email those questions, Zach at zachballinger.com, and we're happy to ask our guests at the end of the interview. Without further ado, Empress, thank you so much for joining the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach. It's nice to be here.
So I want to jump right in. I want to ask you a little bit about your career. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure. So I started in the ballet. I was in San Francisco Ballet. I joined the company when I was 16 years old. I transitioned into the Broadway world, and that was about after, 11 years. I was a little bit exhausted of doing the same things. I mean, ballet is amazing, but wanted to push myself as an artist. Jumped into the Broadway world, and it just opened up so many doors, and, including breaking my silence as an artist. And singing was just this newfound joy and passion. And I'd always had music, which I think was the reason why I started dancing in the first place, was I just was always dancing to music as a kid, which a lot of kids do, but there was something different for me where, it was just, I could hear it and I could feel it, and I could, write music. I was really good at writing music as a kid, a very creative kid. And my parents just allowed me to be creative, so I'm really grateful for that. And it was a natural transition to go to be a singer, songwriter, and becoming Empress for me was one of the most empowering things as an artist, because I finally felt like I was in the driver's seat of my career and I'm actually creating what I'm performing. And for so long, I was doing the opposite. I was dancing and, performing other people's work, which was very satisfying because you feel like the car, but somebody else is driving it. So now I feel like I'm the car and the driver and paving my own road, which is, a little harder than it sounds. But yeah, it's definitely been a fun artistic career, and I'm grateful to be doing what I do.
I love your story because it proves that you can really do what you want to as far as passion in life. So let me ask you a little bit about the ballerina. How did you know first you could do it as a career? And second of all, how did you get into it?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is when that, like when you find your purpose in life, you don't have to be educated. You don't have to have gone to college for this. Somehow at 7 years old, my mom did this exercise with me. Write down your dreams and goals in life. And I wrote down 3 very concise goals. Ballerina, random. I just started dancing. So I didn't even know that was like, I don't know how I knew. No one in my family danced. Also, I grew up in a very small town, Lake Tahoe, California. So there's no training there. So how I knew I wanted to be a ballerina, I have no idea. Second was an actress, and third was a singer, which was really cool because it's very, it's a short list. It's not like I want to be an astronaut and it was like I just knew I wanted to be also in that order because I was smart enough to know, like, okay, well, ballet, you have to. It's a physical thing, so you have to be young to be able to do it. And then acting, you can there's all kinds of characters for you in acting. And then singing, you can always sing. So check. I have no idea. I had a lot of fairy godmothers. Let's just put it that way.
You know what's you've kind of answered one of the questions that I always ask my guests is to take me back when you were a little kid and did you ever have any dreams? And I think it's so interesting that what intersects at your journey is actually specifically what you wrote down at 7 years old. Yeah. Just an amazing story. Now, tell me about your career now. So you're a songwriter, you're a singer. What does that entail? What does that look like?
Well, it's kind of like the first time I've been able to do everything all in one place. So for me, coming from the ballet, going to Broadway, everyone always on Broadway called me this ballerina, this prima ballerina. And I was like, okay, well, there's really just to, I was a great ballerina, but there was no prima in the ballerina part. I got a lot of roles by just being there, like just I was always healthy. I was one of the healthier dancers, so I had a very long career, and I was always just, people got injured, and I got really good parts based on being. I was kind of lucky, and so it wasn't like I was born this superstar. I had a lot of natural talent. I had the drive. Everyone thought I was a prima ballerina on Broadway. I took it, so that's fine. But then when I went to the ballet, because there was a little 3-month period where I was on Broadway, and then went back to finish my season with San Francisco Ballet, my last season. And everyone called me a Broadway star, and I was really always frustrated because it was like everyone just wants to put you in that box, and I only ever wanted to blow up the box and just be all of the things that I love to be in one place. And the only place that I've ever been able to do that is now as Empress, and to kind of take the labels off things and just be able to create. So I write the music. I'm not great at the engineering part of it, but I've been learning, which is, it's part of being Empress, is that I'm learning how to do everything that you need to do, editing videos, all the sound engineering stuff. It sounds a lot more boring than it is. It's really fun. But so I write the songs, I sing them, obviously, I perform them, I get to come up with these creations for music videos and performances, and I get to create the way I appear in my videos. I get to like dress myself, which is really fun. And I just feel like I actually am like the painter of the canvas and the paint all of a sudden, where I get to actually really create and not be created on anymore. And it takes a lot more ownership, and it's so much more empowering as an artist and a woman than I had ever expected or imagined. And now I can't go back. So
a lot of kids are going to watch this, and they have the dreams of either, being on the stage or being a songwriter or singer. Can you take us kind of through your day? What does it look like? I know obviously it changes every day for different professionals, but if somebody was going to do a preceptorship with you, started off with a cup of coffee in the morning and left your office, what does a typical day look like?
Well, right now it's a lot of micromanaging projects, and especially with COVID, it's like a lot of sitting around, more than I've ever had to sit around. But okay, so I'll take you from beginning to end. I have tea. I don't drink coffee. Caffeine doesn't do well with me anymore, and I'm pretty much like a vegan eater. So I eat and I drink based on health and not by taste, although the food tastes really good always. I'm a really good cook. I suck at baking because I'm too artistic for baking. But so I have my tea. I usually do a turmeric tea. And then I do a workout. I have this 5-minute workout that I'm going to work on releasing, because it's like actually the best workout ever. And I did it when I was in the ballet because I never had time to work out, nor the energy to do an extracurricular thing. But I will be sharing my 5-minute workout with the world soon, I promise. And then I get ready for the day, stretch a little bit, because I have a little scoliosis in my back. So if I don't stretch, it's just the end. Meditate. And then I start my day. And it usually starts with an email, like sift through what's the most, like emergency email thing to do. And then I've been monitoring DJs. I have a bunch of remixes coming out this year, so I have to listen to music. I usually go on a walk or something when I have to like listen to music. Take a nice long walk, listen to what the new DJs have come back with, send my edits, which takes forever because you want to be very specific and don't want anything to get lost in the cracks. So there's that. And then I try and find some time for writing. I'm writing a book right now. So my songwriting partner that I met in New York, Alexandra, she's amazing. She and I came up with this really fun idea for a middle grade fantasy novel. And it's based around our music. And the music is kind of like the through line it was a bunch of songs that I couldn't really use as Empress, but they fit into a story that was in my head, and I could just see it. And so we're actually making that come to life in the next year or so, which has been really fun, super time consuming. And we have the most fun ever writing that. And then I find some time to eat. And I have a salad. And then we just keep going. And I I have my PR team that I have to make sure, and then we have to set up all the releases and make sure the videos are good, and I'm planning 2 music videos, and that's like the day in life for me now. At the end of the day, I think I watch like a few episodes of a couple of my favorite shows and hang out with my husband, and that's about it. That's a day in the life for me now. It's actually a lot easier than it sounds, because it's not a lot of, it sounds like I'm crazy, but it's the ballet was really difficult, and there were 12-hour days on Broadway here and there, and so this is easy compared to that.
Thank you for explaining that. Now, on the flip side, what's something that, I think on the surface, your career looks so glamorous, and people would say, well, there's no challenges and there's no difficulties about it. Talk to me through some things that might be hard about your job.
Yeah. Well, okay. So a lot of things. I have my parents call it loser's amnesia. So I don't focus on the hard parts very long. So when I'm going through, because I've gone through so many difficult situations in the ballet, on Broadway, in my music now. And if you focus on those things, it somehow manifests more problems. So for me, it takes 2 seconds for me to like dive back into how I was feeling when I was upset about something, but I kind of like choose not to. And so that's been the only reason why I survived the ballet, was because of my loser's amnesia, was because there were days where I was hired at 16. So they hired me kind of as a little girl, and I turned into a woman, and they didn't like the woman. They hired the little girl. So going through that change in a ballet company, I would say it's worse than being a model, because you're constantly being judged. It's not like a photo shoot here and there where they can do a little editing and make you look skinny or something. It's like you are judged. It's a visual art form. So you're judged on what you look like, and they don't care how you feel or what you're going through. They just want you to look a certain way. And it's pretty black and white. I mean, it's not that their emotions are caught up in it like yours are usually, but going through that change was really tough. I got fired for being not fitting in with the girls. I couldn't say the F word, which is fat. But, and fat in the ballet is like 5 pounds, it's really not much. But it was really tough for me. I had a concussion where apparently it hit this certain part of your brain that's like the volume control. It's called the hypothalamus. Go figure. I hit that one spot that all of a sudden your body, like, it doesn't know, how to lose weight anymore. And so I was going through this like time where I was just like, I don't know what to eat. I don't know how to eat. And I'd go to see this nutritionist, and she'd say, you're fine. You're totally normal weight. And I'd be like, that's why I'm being fired for being, like normal, because that's not a normal thing in the ballet. I think I'm gonna solve that little moment, because I don't want people to think that I went down the dark path that everyone assumes that you do in the ballet and start an eating disorder, which I did not, thank God. I had a friend who was a raw foodist, and he was doing it to support his mother, who was going through cancer, stage 4 cancer. And flash forward, by the way, this is like 12 years ago. Flash forward, she is still alive, and they had given her 3 months to live, and she is cancer-free because of this diet. So that's amazing. And I lost all the weight by eating, food that was good for me. And I had a much longer career than anyone that I joined the company with. I just outlasted them by 10 years. And it was like a happy ending. So for me, I always see the glass is mostly full. But that and injuries and being told at 24 that I needed to retire because I sprained my neck and my shoulder in 2 consecutive days and 2, freak accidents. And I couldn't feel my hand, and I was in so much pain. My body seized up. I literally looked like Quasimodo, and I was in nerve damage is the worst. So I had nerve damage in my hands, and they told me I would never dance again, and that I might not ever feel my fingers again. So that was amazing because I ended up finding a ex-NASA scientist who used space medicine on me and fixed me in a half an hour after 16 doctors had told me that I would never dance again, maybe not ever feel my fingers again. Like, so there's always a solution to problems. You just have to, once you kind of realize that, like when you get through those moments and you go, oh my goodness, there's always a solution. You just have to like find it. Then you kind of feel invincible. And so those tough times were all blessings. And, you know, I just think very fondly of them rather than like, you know, awful. So.
Wow, certainly a lot of adversity. And I think if you peel back the onion on a lot of people's story, there's certainly a lot of adversity in everyone's career, but you sure had your share of it. Now, what about the singer-songwriter position? What are some of the things that, you know, it sounds
Yeah.
really cool on the surface,
Yeah,
but
it
what's some
does.
difficult things behind it?
I would think two things. First is I have a very high bar that I like to keep everything at a certain caliber, and I like to have quality work. And with that, I feel like it's so expensive to do that. So to find funds, like I have a lot of amazing people who have been supporting me and I'm super grateful, but I always want more. So that's like been the challenge is like, okay, great. I have people that are supporting me. I've got, you know, like some money behind me, and like I try and stretch it as much as I can, but I always want to do something bigger and more, and you know, than I feel like I have the means to right now. So that's been like the first challenge. And the very, very first challenge was just getting through all the BS in this industry, because there's so much more than I've ever experienced. Because in the ballet, if you're not physically good enough, you will not make it, and so that weeds out a lot of people in general. So you really, like, when you get to a certain level, you don't, I mean, you see through everything kind of. Whereas in the music world, there's a lot of murky water. And so I've been taken advantage of several times by producers who say they can do something and they really can't, or they charge me a certain price and I don't know the difference, you know, and then I find out like they just, you know, robbed me practically, or they, you know, there's just like a lot of that. Finally, thank goodness, all of the people that I've met in my ballet Broadway world have started introducing me to friends that they have in the music industry who are actually legit. Like my producer, Bart Shadell. Oh, he's like my musical soulmate, and I'm so grateful. And he's the one that I have to fight over his time with like Billie Eilish and Camila Cabello and Katy Perry and Lady Gaga and Beyonce. Like, he's legit, and I'm so grateful. And once you start working with that group of people, you don't have to kind of like watch your back as much, because it's almost like it's like a safer space, if you will. You're not in the middle of the ocean like a delicious looking fish to a bunch of sharks.
Good analogy.
Right.
I think that's awesome that you know, you talk about that. How did you know you were good enough to make it as a career? So, you know, there's a lot of
Yeah.
singers that start off, and did you have any talent evaluations? How does all that
That's a
work?
really good question, actually. No, I've always been good. Like I'm only saying that, and it sounds funny for me to even say that, because in the ballet, you're the most humble person in the world. Like, I just remember last night I was texting a girlfriend who I saw in a San Francisco Ballet video recently, and I was like, that was amazing, you're so good. And she was surprised that I was saying that. She's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm like, no one's telling you this, are they? Like, no one ever gives you compliments in the ballet. They're only working for perfection. And in doing so, they focus on the things that you need to fix rather than, oh, that was a really good turn and you're looking amazing today, or anything. So in the ballet, you are the most humble person, because the next person that's waiting in the wings to do your part is going to come on and probably have a better show than you. You just have to assume that, because you're with the best dancers in the world, and it's all, you know, it's physical. So you just never know when you're going to have a good or bad show, because it's based on how you're feeling that day. If you're injured, if you're da da da. So with that being said, I knew I was good enough to be in the ballet, but then your ego is like, hammered down and you just don't have one in the ballet. Then you go to Broadway and everyone's kind of, like, as far as my careers have gone, I think the ballet is just the hardest thing because you're actually going for perfection. Whereas I had one bad show on Broadway, and this woman who had been in like 10 or 11 Broadway shows, which is a lot. And she was one of the older women in the show, had this great perspective. She goes, hey, we have 8 shows a week on Broadway indefinitely. She goes, it's all about consistency on Broadway. It's not about having every show. This is a long distance marathon. You're not running sprints anymore. This is like, you are going to do a lot more shows. And if you act like this after every bad show, you're just going to go crazy. You have to start like thinking long-term about this and being like about your consistency. If you do 100 good shows and 1 bad show, you did good, So, or even like 1 show a week is bad. That's still a good odd for, Broadway. So very different mentality, right? Because if you have 1 bad show in the ballet world, all of a sudden you come in and the next day your name's crossed out in red and someone that did it better than you is now in red. And you'll see like layers of red and black markers on top of each other. It's intense. So now coming to the music world, I would not be doing this if I didn't know I was actually really good at it. And I say that with all the humbleness that I possibly can because of the ballet experience that I had, because there's better singers out there. But I feel like it's like in my DNA, like I don't have a choice to not do it, if that makes sense. This has always been why I think I did the ballet, why I did the Broadway, why I did some acting and whatever else I did, like in all the writing. It's all because of music, and that's why I'm doing it. And so, yes, I think I'm good enough because I know I am, but it's also that I don't really have a choice. I have to do it. It's a passion, it's what you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I did want to get to some of these questions that came in.
Awesome.
So a student writes in, says, I want to major in performing arts in college, but my parents are strongly against careers in the arts. What would you say to them?
Oh man, this one's so tough because I want to say go for your dream, because otherwise you're going to find another way to do it, and it's always going to make someone unhappy. But your parents are just looking out for you, so don't like make them the villains. They're always trying to do their best. I've been in arguments with parents before, because especially with dance, it's like your career, the best years that you have are like the years that you'd be going to college, and you can actually go to college while you're on Broadway, while you're in the ballet. There's actually now programs where people can actually get their degree and do ballet. And I suggest that if they're really talented and they really want it. Yeah, it's tough because I'm going against a parent telling them to do something, but I wouldn't. So, my parents were very supportive that way. And they kind of knew that if they didn't allow me to do something, then they would be the villains, and they didn't want to be the villains in that scenario. And I just found out recently that my parents actually were so supportive always, but they never told me that they actually thought, when they let me go to San Francisco Ballet School when I was 14, they thought I'd be coming home with my tail between my legs. And they were totally always supportive. And I always felt like because I had that support, I could take bigger risks. And so you never want to lose the support of your parents. So it's a tough thing to say. I would say go for it, because you only live once. And if you really love it, you will find a way to make it work. If you don't give yourself too many reasons to fail, you won't fail, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm very sensitive because I don't ever want to tell a kid to do something when their parents don't, and because I'm not their parent. But
no, that makes complete sense. Sometimes when you're 18, you have to make choices in life, and sometimes that's hard, and we don't, and it may not be a major that your parents want, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. Right. So appreciate the answer on that.
Yeah.
The next question comes in, what kind of music do you sing?
Ooh, I love it. Okay, I do a combination of pop and singer-songwriter. So when I'm on my piano and it's just me, it's very organic and singer-songwriter. But when I perform and envision myself on stage, I have sparkly costumes and big lights and dance numbers. And so it's very pop. And I try and produce more pop music than the singer-songwriter because I find that when I'm on stage, it's only so satisfying to be at the piano. I don't want to ever get stuck anywhere, and I want to have the freedom. So pop. That was the long version of saying pop music.
Awesome. Now, where can people go find you, Empress? Let's say somebody's listening. It sounds like people already are interested. Where can they find your work, your music? Do you have website, social media, anything like that?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a few things. First is my website, Empress. So it's www.empress-music.com. And you can find everything Empress. I just started a Patreon page yesterday, which is exciting. So we have now concerts lined up and a bunch of like fun little projects that I'm working on that I'm going to be sharing with my Patreon patrons first before I release them to the public. So I encourage you guys to just go and actually become one of my patrons and supporters. And then if you want to go on Instagram, I'm at empress.music, and same on Facebook. So those are my two favorite of the social media platforms.
We'll make sure to link to that. Go ahead.
And all the streaming. I'm Empress for all music streaming. So YouTube, everything, it's all the same. Empress.
And so we'll make sure to put those links in. I believe probably the website's probably the best for them to go to, and they'll be able to find you right away.
Yes.
So we'll make sure to link to that. You know, this has been really satisfying and very informative for me because it's just proof you can live in your passion and your dreams. And we appreciate you coming on the show. I know you're very busy. The way you explained your day, you've got a lot lined up. So our audience and I really do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your career journey.
Of course. Thank you. I'm so happy that we got to connect. So thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Empress, the best of luck to you. Take care.
Thanks.